Imagine the national banking sector for a second. You probably picture a collection of separate heavy steel vaults, right? Well, today, it's actually more like a deeply interconnected digital nervous system. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're doing a strategic briefing on India's Digital Threat Report 2024, and we've got some fascinating stuff to cover. So let's start with a real-world problem. What actually happens if a single, poorly secured smart meter sitting in an office building brings down an entire national banking network? Sounds crazy? Maybe like a movie plot? But this isn't science fiction anymore. This scenario highlights exactly why our rapid digital transformation is presenting such a massive security challenge right now. We're moving away from isolated physical systems to this vast, highly exposed digital economy, and that changes everything. The core issue we're tackling here is what experts call a systemic cyber attack. You see, adversaries aren't just trying to rob a single vault anymore. They're actively trying to trigger a cascading failure across the entire banking, financial services, and insurance sector. Because all these institutions are so fundamentally linked to one another, one single security breach can literally collapse the broader ecosystem. It's a domino effect. To understand how we defend against this, here's our roadmap. 1. The systemic cyber risk. 2. The national blueprint. 3. The adversary playbook. 4. Building strategic defenses. And finally, 5. A concept mastery recap. Let's dive in.
All right, starting with part 1, the systemic cyber risk and how we are unifying the defense of our financial sector.
Defending a whole national economy isn't a one-man job. It requires a serious multi-agency governance model. What we're seeing now is this really powerful integration. You've got government authorities stepping up through MIT, national responders via CERT-IN and CSIRT-FIN, and they're combining forces with private sector intelligence from CISA. This structural alliance is absolutely crucial. It's how we shift from isolated every-bank-for-itself security to a unified, proactive national defense.
Moving right along to part 2, the national blueprint and the 5 strategic aims of the 2024 report.
Now, the thing you have to understand is that this blueprint is not just some static, boring list of compliance rules. It's a highly dynamic system. The goals here are to illuminate adversary playbooks, anticipate future attacks, assess the very real impact of AI, recommend actionable controls, and highlight current trends and breach cases. The whole point is to shift our posture from just reacting to yesterday's damage to actually predicting the next strike before it happens. Okay, on to part 3, the adversary playbook. Let's look at the major attack vectors coming at us in 2025.
We are currently facing a pretty terrifying economic reality. Malicious AI has drastically lowered the barrier to entry for cybercrime. Historically, we dealt with traditional threats, think manual phishing or standard malware. But today, completely unskilled criminals can launch highly sophisticated automated attacks using tools like FraudGPT and WormGPT. And it gets worse. AI deepfakes are now so good they can effortlessly bypass traditional verifications like OTPs. It's a whole new ballgame.
Then there's the software supply chain attack. Think of this like poisoning a city's water supply before it even reaches the tap. Attackers are actually injecting harmful code into foundational developer libraries on platforms like GitHub. So any application built on that code gets infected globally. At the same time, we're seeing prompt hacking, where adversaries manipulate enterprise AI chatbots to bypass safety guardrails and leak internal sensitive data. And if we look a little further over the horizon, we hit the quantum computing threat. This one is huge. The secure, encrypted data we are safely storing right now, banking details, national identities, passwords, could literally be decrypted and exposed in an instant by future quantum computers. It's basically a ticking clock for global data security. Now combine that future quantum risk with the blind spots we have today. An ordinary internet-connected smart meter, or your home router, can serve as a hardware backdoor into a massive network. Pair that with cryptocurrencies like Monero, which allow criminals to extract and hide their funds completely untraceably. And suddenly the battlefield expands way beyond traditional banking infrastructure, right into our living rooms.
Which brings us to part 4, building strategic defenses. Let's look at the mitigation framework.
So how do we fight back? Effective defense requires a layered security architecture. We essentially have to build digital fortresses. Step 1 is enforcing strong multi-factor authentication using mechanisms like OAuth or JSON Web Tokens. Step 2 is network segmentation, isolating critical networks into secure, walled-off zones. And Step 3 is enforcing application whitelisting to strictly control exactly what software is allowed to run. But here is a massive real-world problem. Giant banks run older, legacy systems, and they absolutely cannot afford operational downtime to fix them. The solution here is something called virtual patching. This is a lifesaver. It allows organizations to apply security rules at the network level, instantly shielding those vulnerable older systems from new threats, all without altering the core software while permanent fixes are being engineered in the background.
And look, breaches are inevitably going to happen. When they do, forensic teams need a massive historical footprint to trace these advanced attackers. That's why mandating the retention of detailed security logs for a minimum of 180 days isn't just a suggestion, it's an absolute non-negotiable requirement for successful incident response.
Finally, we've got to secure the invisible data pipelines. This means strictly limiting API access through proper CORS configurations. Plus, any sensitive payment details must be masked using cryptographic hashes. That ensures that even if a hacker intercepts the transmission, the data remains fundamentally unreadable to them.
All right, let's bring it all together for Part 5, our concept mastery recap and final takeaways.
If you retain absolutely nothing else from this explainer, lock in these 5 concepts. Number 1, our interconnected financial infrastructure creates a major systemic risk. 2, a unified multi-agency defense is mandatory now. 3, AI has dramatically lowered the barrier to entry for cybercriminals. 4, quantum computing is a looming threat to our current encryption standards. And 5, defense absolutely requires strict, layered mitigation, things like virtual patching, segmentation, and strong authentication.
So, as AI continues to rapidly democratize cybercrime, I'll leave you with this provocative thought. Will our unified defense framework evolve fast enough to protect our digital economy? It's a huge question for our future. I highly encourage you to explore the full threat report to dive even deeper into these critical defense strategies. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.